Welcome everybody to this week's edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am the Doc, John Macaroon, joining me, as always, to break down all the happenings across Major League Baseball is my guy, Vito Chirco. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Vito, I guess we got to start with the biggest news relevant to the Detroit Tigers. Their patience might have been a major detriment and a major flaw because the White Sox have parted ways with Renteria, thus opening the door for A.J. Hinch to take a much better job than the Detroit Tigers. And I think when you learn now in the world of sports, if you target somebody, sometimes your search might actually be a detriment because another job that probably is way more desirable just became open. And if you're A.J. Hinch, you're not coming to the Tigers if that White Sox job is indeed open.
Well, think about it from this angle, too, right? You're potentially going to the White Sox. If there's two offers on the table right now from the Tigers and the White Sox won 35 times in 60 games this year, okay? You're going somewhere with the White Sox. You're looking to win big, to win it all in 2021 and beyond. And the similarities between the Cubs position back a few years ago and now this one, too, with the White Sox is striking. Because of the fact that Rick Renteria, the former now White Sox skipper, was a manager of the Cubs on the north side of Chicago before Joe Maddon got the job and led them to a World Series victory. It took the Cubs 2 years after Renteria to win it all. And now you look at the situation with the White Sox once again, and they could very well win it a year from now, thus in 2021 in the first year of the new manager, which could very well be A.J. Hinch. And you look at it once again from this angle. If your two offers are only from the Tigers and the White Sox, God, it's an easy decision for A.J. Hinch to make, in my opinion. Even as a hardcore Tigers fan, a guy that has grown up with the Tigers and loved them since day one, they're still my baseball team, obviously, to this day that I root on every single game. But man, I mean, you know what A.J. Hinch has to be thinking right now? It is the fact that when you compare these two openings, one is strikingly better. They're not even close. They're not even close to each other in terms of the quality of the two vacancies. So if I'm A.J. Hinch, even with my fandom for the Tigers, I'm choosing the White Sox, man, over the Tigers every single day at ends and why.
Tough times, man. I was disappointed, too, because I really do think that A.J. Hinch probably would be the manager that would come in here quickly and handle business. But unfortunately, I do think it's trending towards indeed Hinch taking the White Sox job. Is that what you're hearing as well? That probably that Hinch will be the primary target and that he'll end up with your boy Dom's favorite team, the White Sox there?
Well, if it's not A.J. Hinch, there was a report from Bob Nightingale in USA Today that came out yesterday in which he said that former White Sox skipper, former A's skipper, St. Louis Cardinals manager as well, Tony LaRussa, could be intrigued by the opening and could end up taking over a job, which he had once again way back in the day now. And he led them to American League West Division crowns back when he was first the skipper of the White Sox. Obviously, he won championships with the St. Louis Cardinals, won that '06 World Series against the Tigers. So Tony LaRussa right now, by the way, is a Hall of Famer, too. He would be the first guy to come out of retirement as a manager and to be a Hall of Famer while he's managing a club. So that's what's at stake with Tony LaRussa. And the possibility is there, I guess, for the White Sox to hire Tony LaRussa, him coming out of retirement, to join the White Sox once again when they are trying to win big a season from now.
Tony LaRussa. Oh my gosh. If that's what they're doing, if they're throwing money around, why not bring up the name of Jim Leland? That made me chuckle. Tony LaRussa, that's, I think, a hire that would upset many people that are looking for opportunities to keep bringing back, quote unquote, retread. Now, Tony LaRussa is not a retread in terms of the fact that he's been all across Major League Baseball, but yeah, I think it's time for the White Sox to go in the direction of either Cora or Hinch. And I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to go out there and they're going to, explore all opportunities, but they need to deliver on one of the big name managers. And I think the Tigers probably lost out and lost a major opportunity to get somebody. And I think, though, as time passes, as this search continues, my gut's telling me the Tigers are going to go cheap. They're going to go young and inexperienced because they're still in a rebuild. They're not yet ready to bring on the big name free agents. I think that when you really look at it objectively, Cora might be the outside chance, but really, it does sound like Don Kelly, Marcus Thames, maybe even sticking with McClendon. I'm not getting the sense that once this managerial situation shakes out, that it's going to fall in the favor of the Tigers.
No, and because of the White Sox situation, too, once again, you bring that up, and supposedly they're not going to consider Ozzie Guillen, their former skipper who won in '05 with the White Sox, for this managerial vacancy currently. Now, back on the Tigers situation and what they have looming for themselves, it looks like it's A.J. Hinch's job if he does desire it. Now, after him, yeah, I mean, your managerial candidates aren't too promising. Is it Donnie Kelly, baby, after A.J. Hinch? Is he the guy they're going to fall back on and hire if you don't land A.J. Hinch? Or is it Alex Cora, who won a World Series championship with the Bo Sox, remember, as well, was with the Astros as their bench coach, too, for A.J. Hinch in Houston. So Cora has a lot of experience, being a part of a winning ball club, being the manager of one that won it all when Dave Dombrowski was the lead dog in that front office there in Beantown. So Dombrowski, remember, Trader Dave, as he was once known as, at least, right? And I loved calling him just Dave D, and the man that really resurrected the Tigers franchise. He also hired Alex Cora in Boston. Now, I don't know if that means anything to Avila. Maybe Avila goes after Cora because of that. But still, I mean, once again, your odds of landing a guy with a ton of experience is highly credible after A.J. Hinch isn't too high, and especially after Hinch and Cora. So they don't hire Hinch, which right now I see as not going to happen, unfortunately, for the Tigers. So if that is the case, John, I think we're landing on the possibility more and more by the day of hiring Donnie Kelly, who is with the Pirates right now in a role on their coaching staff at the major league level, was with the Tigers in their minor league system as well prior to landing that job in Pittsburgh. So Kelly, I think, would be decent. But is it a home run hire to hire Don Kelly at this point when you're trying to resurrect this franchise and try to be competitive more and more by the day and by the season now? Well, no, he wouldn't be a home run hire. Sure, a Tiger fan favorite. Everybody loved that nickname once again of Donnie Kelly Baseball or Donnie Kelly Baby and whatnot, and clamored for him whenever he was used by Jim Leyland. And he was a favorite of Jim Leyland as well. So maybe Leyland, Doc, with that being said, as a special assistant to Al Avila, puts in a good word for Kelly. And Avila obviously was with the Tigers when Kelly played for the Tigers as well, but Avila was working under Dave D. So I think that might just play favorably, and that would be for Don Kelly because of his ties to the organization in years past. Once again, being a part of the Tigers farm system as a coach, being a player for the Tigers. But Jim Leyland was a skipper. Leyland's still with the organization. So all that added up, John, I could very well see, once again, if the Tigers don't land on A.J. Hinch as the successor to Ron Gardenhire, and they end up hiring Don Kelly.
We'll continue to pay attention here at Tigers Talk to the managerial search. I think you're a little bit more optimistic, sounding a little bit more enthusiastic than I am. I'm a little bit on the side of thinking there's going to be major disappointment, especially when you look at what's going on with the Red Wings, another Ilitch-owned entity. They got their general manager in place. Every move sounds good. Short-term deals, chopping off people where they need to be, buyouts, a new goalie, letting go of Jimmy Howard and Justin Abdelkader, moving on from the pieces that don't fit. It seems like anything that Steve Yzerman touches, everybody is in favor of, whereas everything that Al Avila touches, I am highly, highly skeptical of because you look at it in totality, I think you could have gotten more for letting go of some of your valuable pieces, and I think they might have made a couple mistakes in regards to Castellanos and other players that potentially could have been still utilized heavily by this franchise. But in a rebuild, sometimes you got to make tough decisions. And now when we look at, the young cats, the young arms, who's going to step in here, let's see and let's let it breathe a little bit and see who's going to be tasked with taking this franchise to the next level. Now, in switching gears and looking at the playoffs, Vito, the playoffs have been highly entertaining. I'm really intrigued, and I've been fascinated by the Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, they forced a Game 5. They were able to dispose of the New York Yankees, and I think everybody loves when the Yankees get disposed of. A great Game 5. Brusso former member of the Oakland Golden Grizzlies baseball team. That whole backstory was great. You know, if you didn't pay attention, Aroldis Chapman nearly took his head off earlier this season in a budding rivalry between the Yankees and the Rays. And then Brusso, late in the game, I believe 8th inning in a 1-1 game, takes Aroldis Chapman deep on a 100-mile-an-hour pitch, and it propels the Rays to the ALCS where they're taking on the Astros, and everybody was like, oh, can the Astros still win? And now the Rays are up 2-0 in that series. And then you look on the other side, it's the Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves. And I'm not really too much paying attention to it, outside of the, reading the box scores and paying attention. But hey, the Braves took an early 1-0 lead, I believe, in that series. So I'll pay attention there. But I'm obviously more invested in the AL side of things. I've been thoroughly entertained by the postseason. Now we're starting to get a little bit of fans. So by and large, a lot of good storylines in these baseball playoffs. And, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I want to see the Astros win and I wanted to see, Astros Yankees to get revenge. It would have been nice. It would have been a cute storyline. It would have been something that was intriguing. But I think the bigger story is, how the hell did the Rays get here?
Well, look at their payroll, man. They spent like no money. The Tigers back in the day spent all these millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, right, to keep Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer happy. All these different dudes, right, they had to spend money for, specifically Justin Verlander, Miguel Cabrera, when they were signing guys like Prince Fielder, Victor Martinez, you name it. All these different individuals that they acquired with big money attached to their very name. You look at the Rays building a young core yet again, reaching their second ever ALCS. And remember, they made it to the World Series the last time they reached the ALCS and eventually lost to the Philadelphia Phillies in the Fall Classic. But still, the job that manager Kevin Cash has done is hugely admirable. And he could be the manager of the year in the American League this season for his efforts in leading this franchise to the ALCS at this point. And once again, as you already noted yourself too, John, to a 2-0 series at lead. I mean, Houston Astros, the most hated team in all of baseball and all of pro sports, you could argue, right now. And the most hated team in baseball for many, many years. We're looking back, right? Dating back to past years and past villains of the league. You can say the Astros are right up there, if not the top villain of almost all time in Major League Baseball history. So to get this matchup, it is a little bit tastier than I guess we would have envisioned. And because the Rays have played a good brand of baseball leading up to this point. And Charlie Morton started in Game 2, had a nice performance. All these different dudes for the Rays are turning it up, just putting together solid performances when the time matters the most. So huge props to the Rays and to Dick Vitale, who shares a birthday with me, by the way. Okay, Dickie V, baby, shares a birthday with me on June 9th. He's only a little bit older than me. But anyways, he's a huge Rays fanatic, like their biggest celebrity fan, and he's all over Twitter all the time whenever the Rays do something. And even if they're losing or doing poorly, he's a guy always that gets behind them, and he's never going to lose sight of the fact that he is a fan of the Tampa Bay Rays. Great story there, definitely in Tampa. Houston, once again, they are the villains. People, I think, want to see them and wanted to see them play the Yankees, like you said, here in the ALCS, just because of that now rivalry, per se, right? And just to see what the Astros could do without the cheating. Could they beat the Yankees yet again? And people really, I think, including myself, are looking forward to a matchup between the Astros and the Dodgers in the Fall Classic this year, which very well could still happen. Yet the Astros once again are down 2-0 early on in their series with the Rays. And then the Dodgers are down 1-0 after losing on Monday night to the Atlanta Braves. Another young club with some young batters and young pitchers, and exciting to watch. And especially when you have some fans in the stands. 10,000 fans there at the ballpark on Monday night for that Game 1 between the Dodgers and Braves in the NLCS. The only game thus far this year where there were fans, and now there will be, the rest of the way in this series. So, some will say, hey, that was the first real Major League Baseball game of the 2020 campaign. And simply, John, it was exciting to see fans in the stands there on Monday night once again. Walker Buehler, now for the Dodgers, started that game, and he looked solid. Really good pitch well for the most part. Was bringing in heat, striking out batters left and right. For the Braves that did it best in and Dodger blue in game number 1. And we'll see how that series ends up progressing. I'm still going to stick with Dodger blue prevailing and getting to the Fall Classic and winning this time around here in 2020 being long overdue. Now, the AL side of things, I did pick the Astros before this series, and obviously it would be horrible, right? Downright horrible for me to flip-flop now on my series prediction. And guess what? I'm not going to do it yet. I'm not going to do it to the Houston Astros, who I'm not going to say are my team, but a team that, honestly, despite their cheating ways in years past, I wouldn't mind seeing prevail in this series. And I love Jose Altuve. I don't care what you say about the guy. He's too short. He's a cheater. He led the cheating ways of the Houston Astros in years past. And some people just don't want to see him succeed at all, right? And you had this Houston Astros hate account pretty much all throughout the season, just going after Altuve for his poorest results at the plate. And he didn't hit at all, realistically, coming into the playoffs this year. Now, he's turned it on of late, had a home run as well for himself in this series. So he's turned it on. He's hitting a lot better. And it looks like the old Jose Altuve, which I love to see from the 5'6" dude. So for all the little guys out there, we want to see the guy succeed. We want to see him prevail and shut up everybody that says that he's only good because he did cheat in years past. Well, guess what, guys? It's not the case. And you're seeing it right now in full display here in the ALCS against the Tampa Bay Rays. So, John, I just talked a lot there. I know I did. But to sum it all up, my man, I'm thinking still the Houston Astros get this series victory, which is going to be tough to do down 2-0. But I think they do end up prevailing and reaching the Fall Classic to play the Dodgers. And I could very well see, John, with that being said, the Dodgers getting that sweet redemption and wiping the floor clean with the Astros in 5 games in this year's Fall Classic.
Yeah. Before we continue our talk, always want to give a shout out to, there's been a plethora of deaths surrounding Major League Baseball. Several Major League Baseball Hall of Famers have passed away, most notably Joe Morgan. For me, I grew up listening to Joe Morgan call games. I thought his analysis was always spot on. Somebody that really just brought class to the game. So I just want to say from Tigers Talk that we, send our condolences to the families of those that have been lost. And, when you hear stories, the great stories of some of the greats in baseball, really makes the game and the sport something. That's why I follow it. Even though I'm not the most diehard baseball fan, I definitely follow the Tigers passionately. And from the time I was a kid, I used to watch This Week in Baseball religiously. It was part of my Saturday viewing. I think it was such a great show. And when I got a chance to watch it, it was great, the music and all the great stories there. So it's just a tough time, in terms of, the passing of Joe Morgan. He was the spark of the Big Red Machine. And for those that don't know, former Tigers manager Sparky Anderson was the manager of the Big Red Machine. And that's how he grew his lore with the Cincinnati Reds. And then he came over to the Tigers and did great things. So shout out to the greats of the game of baseball. Now, Vito, I got to ask you, has the run of the Astros done anything to kind of erase the notion that they couldn't win without cheating? Because that's been kind of the underlying tone, is that maybe the Astros have taken this upon themselves as like a revenge tour to say, hey, look at us. We can still do it. We didn't need to cheat. We just did what any athletes would do in similar circumstances. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, that age-old adage. In any way, is the success and the ALCS appearance by the Astros in any way a redeeming quality? Is it any way that franchise gets any redemption because of their current run?
Well, people will still largely hate the Astros. It's not going to go away, and could be even worse. I think it will be next year over the course of a full 162-game campaign. So they're not going to hear the end of these boos and the pitchers throwing act up. They're going to have to deal with that for the rest of this year, but really next year now, because the playoffs, you don't want to hit these batters, right, and put your team in a bad situation because you want some kind of revenge against the Astros for their cheating ways in years past. But you're going to see it on a large scale next year over the course of a full season when they have to play everybody once again, and teams, that being said, that they didn't have to play here in the shortened campaign in 2020. So they're going to have to deal with the blows and the repercussions of their cheating ways a season from now as well, and maybe even in a worse way. So it's not going away anytime soon. Now, I don't know what they've done throughout the course of this postseason up to this point, and after finishing sub 500 in the regular season, is it redeeming, to answer your question, John? I would say only slightly. Now, for me, probably more than the average Joe out there that just hates and despises the Astros at this point, doesn't want to see them succeed whatsoever. And a guy like my man, Jose Altuve, he continuing to bring him up, but for all little guys out there, he was carrying the torch, man, by his success at the plate, what he had done in years past, winning an American League MVP award, hitting for average, hitting for pop as well, even with the small frame, the small stature. So what he's done now in this series thus far against the Rays and, a series ago as well, he's been a good hitter again. I mean, he's really emerged onto the scene and has hit tremendously. Carlos Correa has as well. Springer, I know, struggled in Game 2 after his first AB, but really he's had a solid postseason as well, hitting the home run ball. Correa hitting the home run ball. Altuve even sneaking one in here recently. So Altuve, Correa, and Springer have hit in this postseason. Now, is that the definition of redemption for a lot of baseball fans and pundits alike? I'm going to say no. For me, though, John, at the end of the day, I look at it as a slight degree of redemption. And I'm happy, once again, for my boy, for the 33rd time I've probably said it on this week's edition of Tigers Talk, Jose Altuve.
Okay. See, I'm a forgiving type. I could say that there's a little bit of redemption. What I like is at least getting somebody that's been around the game of baseball some success. The first ALCS appearance by the Houston Astros manager. It's good to see Dusty Baker because he's taken a lot of crap with those Giants teams, kind of known as a manager that just couldn't get over the hump. So while, many people will focus in on the roster of the Astros, I'm just happy for, I think, 71-year-old manager Dusty Baker to get an opportunity to play in the Fall Classic in the ALCS and maybe give him a chance to play in the World Series and get that W. So, hey, why not? Why not have an opportunity for Dusty Baker to make a nice run and to do some things? I like Dusty Baker. I think he's been a quality manager and obviously put in a crazy position to come into that. And with everybody throwing at him, with all the adversity, I think he's been a steady, calming force. And obviously, we joked around when potentially we'd hear the name of Dusty Baker being talked about or bantied about for the Tigers, and you'd be like, no, he's like the ultimate retread. He's had like 40 jobs. He's had he's been all around baseball. But I think maybe that team with talent, and sometimes I think when you have experience, sometimes a job like the Astros where there's talent, there's hunger, there's motivation, that they just need that calming force. They don't need, like the Tigers need somebody to show them, like, hey, on this situation, you do this, throw it to this guy. They need more of the X's and O's, basically, per se, of the game, the nuts and bolts, to be taught to these young cats. Whereas a team like the Astros, they just need a nice, smooth psychologist to kind of rally the troops, keep everybody calm, let everybody, not ride the tidal wave of emotion. And I think Dusty Baker, really an underrated hire for the Astros. I don't think he's being talked about enough, and I'll give him some credit. I'm a fan now, a new fan of Dusty Baker. Obviously, you know about him, but you just knew about him for some losing ways, and it'd be nice to turn it around for him to get an opportunity to coach and manage in the ALCS and maybe a chance in the World Series again.
Well, he's a retread, but give him some props, right? What credit is due, man. Give him some credit. I love the fact that you finally are, Johnny, because you made fun of him probably even more than me. But you and I both have dogged Dusty Baker, unfortunately, in years past. But he's the right guy for this job. Give him some darn credit, right? Some damn credit. Play some respect, baby, on his name, because he definitely deserves it for the job that he has done enduring all the adversity, overcoming all of it for the most part. Because, it hasn't been easy for the guy. He's 71. You're almost as old as the dude, by the way. You're only a few years off from Dusty Baker, unfortunately for you, John. But, hey, anyway, that's a side topic. A topic for another day there. But Dusty Baker, an old veteran man of the game, has managed plenty of years in the game with the Giants. You had to manage the Cubs, the Steve Bartman incident when he lost to the Marlins in 2003 with the young Miguel Cabrera, Buzz Rodriguez, and all those young guys on that Marlins ball so that beat the Cubs in the NLCS when the Cubs thought they were going to the Fall Classic there. So Dusty couldn't get over the hump then. He managed the Nationals when they were good, but he didn't win with them. It took Dave Martinez, the current skipper there in Washington, to win it all for the Nats. So Dusty Baker's always been close. He made, by the way, the Fall Classic with the Giants way back in the day when the Halos won. And the days of K-Rod, young K-Rod, succeeding late in ball games. So that did happen. He has made the Fall Classic before, Dusty Baker, but has never won it all. And he got the chance to do so in 2020, even with the abbreviated version of this year. And with him managing, of all teams, the most villainous team of all time, perhaps, in the Houston Astros. I think still baseball, to a large scale, John, will be happy for Dusty Baker getting finally kind of off the schneid per se and winning it all for the first time as a big league manager.
Okay. And so you're looking at potentially Houston and LA Dodgers one more time. Would that be intriguing? Would that be part of the revenge tour that might spice up some ratings and draw some attention?
Can we use hashtag revenge tour too for Detroit Podcast on Twitter? I think we should pick it up. I think other people probably have by this point regarding the Houston Astros. But if the Dodgers get the chance to play them, they're salivating at the mouth right now, John. And they're probably even a little bit disappointed that the Tampa Bay Rays keep winning and are up 2-0 currently as we speak right here on Tigers Talk this week. Because they wanted to beat up the Astros, man, in the next round. Wipe the floor clean with Houston in this year's World Series. And I'm still going to stick with those picks. I see it happening. And one thing I see the Dodgers, honestly, winning easily. And if all classic matchup were to happen, and yet again for the Astros and the Dodgers for sure get their sweet redemption. And I think once again they win easily and win in 5 games.
Yeah. Real quickly, before we get out of here, just reading a little bit of some storylines. Many, many people are just hammering Rick Renteria in the way he mismanaged his bullpen against Oakland in the deciding game of the White Sox wildcard series. Man, many people are just ripping him online still to this day, and it basically cost him his job. And I think that in terms of, managing and things like that, sometimes, the decisions that you make, are going to have serious ramifications. And I think that many people are, and maybe you can give me a little insight because Dom probably was pissed off to the highest of heavens when he saw the mismanagement. Do you believe if Renteria had actually managed properly and handled business, let's prognosticate here and let's speculate. Could the White Sox have made a run this year if Renteria wasn't a manager that just jacked up how he used his bullpen?
Yeah, I predicted it, John. Were you listening to me on past edition of Tiger Talk? I don't think my co-host here, guys, are listening to me, but I was totally praising the White Sox left and right throughout the course of this campaign. And not just because the Tigers couldn't beat the White Sox, which really they couldn't, but they won one time throughout all their times playing the White Sox in 2020. Yet it was more than that. It was about the White Sox deep, a young roster from top to bottom, other bats from top to bottom in that lineup, even with their young arms, with their pitching staff. And the pitching staff in the end failed them. But did Rick Renteria play a role in all that? Sure. Also, I think, though, at the same time, John, that if Renteria would have won that series against the A's somehow, some way, the White Sox would have had to keep Renteria, in my opinion. Even if they still had those same thoughts, I think they would have about his mismanaging of the bullpen in crucial moments in the regular season, in the playoffs. I think they would have kept him just because it would have looked kind of poor PR-wise to let go of this guy when he finally has this great success and wins the darn playoff series, which the White Sox haven't done in forever. I believe dating back to 05 when they won the World Series. So they made it then, won it all in 05, made it again in 08, didn't win a series then. I believe they lost the Rays in the first round. The Rays that year with Joe Madden leading the way, making the World Series. So the White Sox's playoff success is very minimal in recent memory. Over the course of the last decade, easily, once again, was just what I said there to all of you. So the White Sox is getting a playoff series victory. I think would have meant a lot to that young team, to that franchise, to the ownership, to the fans. And I think Jerry Reinsdorf and company, I think would have kept Rick Renteria as much as it would have maybe pained them and they would have thought about firing him potentially just because they know he's not the right manager to lead this ship in future years and they're trying to win a World Series. I think once again, if they would have beaten the A's in that wild card series, I think Renteria would have come back as the White Sox skipper in 2021, and the domino effect would have been the Tigers could have easily then had A.J. Hinch as their skipper for next year and beyond.
All right, before we get off the air, some breaking news. Maybe a little crack and opportunity again further for the Braves. Clayton Kershaw has been scratched from Game 2 with back spasms. Tony Gonsolin will make his first career Major League Baseball postseason appearance in Game 2 on Tuesday. Stay tuned to see how that impacts the Dodgers. Do the Braves take advantage and get out to that 2-0 lead? Oh, baby. We'll probably broadcast every other week or so as we pay attention, but if things heat up and juicy storylines emerge and Vito wants to, take a little extra time out of his busy schedule to talk baseball, we may do a couple extra podcasts surrounding the postseason, but at this point in time, the schedule works perfectly to broadcast every 2 weeks going into the postseason and beyond. The Detroit Tigers have earned the number 3 pick In future editions of the podcast, we will break down potential selections that the Tigers could make and should make, and Vito will do some homework and research, and he'll break down who he thinks is the best fit, who should he'll do Al Avila's job for him. He'll tell him this is the guy to take to continue this rebuild for the Detroit Tigers. Make sure to follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. I want to thank everybody that's been downloading, subscribing. All you got to do is go to your favorite place that you listen to podcasts, type in 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast. You hit that subscribe button, and then all our daily content will find you. We're posting podcasts each and every day talking about all teams Detroit and beyond. And anything major in the world of sports, we hit on each and every week on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Talk soon, Vito. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and looking forward to that compensation for doing Al Avila's job as well, guys. Thank you, John.